Hello and welcome to the Couch Cricket.
How's it? And welcome back to the couch.
Sounds like you're welcoming people back to therapy. But in that vein, how are you doing, Carl?
I'm doing pretty well. My middle stump got absolutely ripped out by a 13-year-old.
Oh, knocked him over!
I didn't pick the in-swinger, but later on in the evening I managed to pitch some leggies. So all in all, not a bad evening out. How are you, Chris?
I'm really well. I'm enjoying the time off to watch some of the World Cup warm-up games. It's been really interesting seeing those games. If you missed our build-up to the World Cup, then go give our first episode a listen. We are available on iTunes, YouTube, Spreaker, and you can follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Give us a like, give us a share. Let us know what you think. We'd love to interact with you and hear what you think.
What an exciting week we had so far. The warm-up matches for the World Cup started, and we've already seen a nice little upset. Afghanistan beating Pakistan. I mean, Chris, that just once again solidifies our argument from the first episode where we said, Pakistan, on the day, if they pitch up, they can beat anyone. But if they don't, they can't beat anyone.
My logic is undeniable.
Yeah, and again, basically the two favourites of the tournament, England and India, both losing.
Ooh.
Not two teams as weak as Afghanistan, or in theory weak as Afghanistan, but also losing the warm-up game. Now, we know the warm-up games aren't really about who wins, it's about testing combinations, but still, it's interesting going into the opening games. You'd like to have some momentum with you, and in that sense, South Africa doing well to beat Sri Lanka convincingly.
Interestingly enough, we didn't see a lot of high-scoring games. Conditions seem to be a bit trickier, which can be expected. I mean, it's England, and it's the start of the tournament, so pitches probably still all have a nice fair bit of grass on them, and probably assisting the seam bowlers quite well. We had the Captain's Media Day this week, and Virat Kohli came out, and he started with the psychological mind games. He criticised England, saying that they're obsessed with reaching 500 runs in an ODI innings, and he then said that the hell for leather approach from the first over is not going to work in knockout games during the World Cup. Essentially saying the pressure is going to be too much for them.
Well, he's got a point. I think you're going to struggle to get 500 in innings. I wouldn't put it past, especially India and England's batting orders. But there's something to be said for a bit of caution in the knockout games. Runs on the board are worth a lot, and you'd rather get yourself a 350 and back yourself to defend that than to go for 400 or something like that.
After saying that, Virat Kohli came out and he started praising Jofra Archer for his X factor, saying essentially that he's what England needed all this time to win them matches. So I don't know whether Jofra is going to be able to live up to expectations, but the stage is set.
Yeah, and I think it's the beauty of the World Cup. People remember your performances in the World Cup. You can make a name for yourself, or you can have a bad experience. But
I had a bad experience.
I had a bad experience.
But Jofra Archer's got that he's got the call up, he's got the opportunity, so he can really make a name for himself. Yeah, at the Captain's Day, we also saw everyone's kits. There's some interesting styles this year. It seems like the throwback kits are in. England and Australia looking like some previous World Cup years. England going back to 1992.
Basically, a replica kit for England. I think they think that if they replicate the kit of 92, they might replicate the success of 92, where they made the final.
The World Cup is such an exciting tournament with so many fixtures that are so densely packed.
Quite a statistically dense sport.
That we can't afford to cover each game in detail. So for our starting 11s, our man of the match predictions, and our score predictions, have a look on social media. We'll be posting those for each game. But today we're just going to cover what we think are the key fixtures for the week.
We're going to start off with SOS's England, the opener. I am absolutely buzzing for this one.
Yeah, it's going to be a great one. England, as we've said, the hosts, probably tournament favourites, up against, for a change, South Africa coming in probably as underdogs.
The underdogs, but still, in my opinion, a relatively well-balanced team. And with, arguably, the best seam attack in the world. If you take that into account, and the fact that it's the start of the tournament and the pitches will most likely still have a bit of grass cover, and suddenly South Africa not that much of an underdog anymore. What do you think, Chris?
We do have a good team. There's no doubt about it. We're not a weak team. But I think one of our discussions is going to be the all-rounder spot. We've got three really great all-rounders to choose from. you could make an argument for JP Duminy being a fourth all-rounder, but Andile Phehlukwayo, Dwayne Pretorius and Chris Morris being our inverted commas specialist all-rounders. And it's going to be interesting to see who gets the nod. Chris Morris coming into the squad a bit late because of the injured Heinrich Nokia. Heinrich Nokia being an out-and-out fast bowler. So Chris Morris coming in because he does have that pace, but he would be counted as an all-rounder with his hitting ability.
That's really interesting for me because they obviously picked the original squad, including Heinrich Nokia. He's a real fast bowler, you know, specialist bowler. So now with his injury, they've selected Morris, who's an all-rounder, and as you said, also a great fast bowler. But I'm just wondering, let's say something unfortunate happens and one of our three leading fast bowlers gets an injury, either Steyn, Rabada or Ngidi. Is Morris a like-for-like replacement for one of them, as was intended when they selected Nortje? I don't know. We'll have to see, but it is something to consider when, you know, looking, because unfortunately injuries do happen. And Rabada entering this World Cup with a bit of a stiff back. The media has been saying everything's fine and he played in the warm-up match, but still something to worry about.
Yeah, Dale Steyn's also been injury-prone in recent memory. Unfortunate for him. But,
and Lungi Ngidi also coming back from an injury now. Yeah. So, you know, something to think about. But I think let's just revert to the bigger question, the all-rounder spot. Let's take a look at all three of them. Firstly, at their batting.
Yeah, so if we look at Andile, we've got a batting average there of 32 with a strike rate of 91, which you'd say is quite respectable. But there's a caveat there. You know, stats tell a story, but you've got to take them in context. He's got 12 not outs out of his 25 one-day innings, which boosts his average quite a lot. On the one hand, you can say this is lucky. On the other hand, you can say he finishes innings off. Probably deserves most of that average of 32, but might be lucky in some instances.
If you take a look at some of the innings as he's played, I mean, that innings with David Miller against Australia just popped into my head. I mean, that was unbelievable. And he's added some stellar performances with the bat after that as well. So, 32, most likely a pretty fair illustration of where his batting is. Yeah. Chris Morris, on the other hand, got a batting average of 19.6, strike rate of 97. He's a much better batsman than that.
Yeah, I think, again, stats tell a story, but you've got to take it in context. Chris Morris sometimes gets sent in slightly up the order, or to do a pinch hitting job when the team's maybe got a decent total on the board and we just want that final kick. So sometimes he goes in and sacrifices his wicket to push the total along. So maybe worth more than that with the bat. But those are the cold hard stats, an average of 19, but a good strike rate at 97.
Yeah, and the average of 19 of Morris is pretty on par with the average of our third option for all-rounder, Dwayne Pretorius. Albeit Dwayne Pretorius has played quite a lot less than Morris and Andile, only 19 games, and I don't think he's had that much of an opportunity to prove himself with the bat. But in the recent series against Sri Lanka, he actually displayed some quality big hitting, which I think helped his case a lot.
Yeah, only playing 8 innings and probably suffering from the same argument that I made for Morris. Sometimes coming in having to sacrifice your wicket to win the game or to set a big total. It's hard to judge him just based on that number. If you look at his list A, batting average is 33, maybe more an indication of what he's capable of with the bat.
Yes, but if we're saying that Morris and Dwayne get sent in situations where they have to sort of play a pinch hitting role, I feel Andile often gets sent in the same sort of situation. He also bats down the order, and he's got the 12 not outs. So for me, batting-wise, even though I feel Chris Morris is most likely the most talented batsman between the three, if you look at performances, I have to go with Andile on a batting perspective.
Yeah, and that's fair enough. Morris, we know, with sweet timing, but can hit a ball a very long way. But based on the averages, as you say, and on recent performances, you've got to go with Andile with the bat. Yeah, if we go over to the bowling, we've got something surprising. Chris Morris, being a genuine fast bowler, can generate good pace.
And some beautiful swing.
Beautiful swing. Unfortunately, having the worst average of the three. He's got an average of 40 in one-day games. We know he's worth more than that. We've seen him bowl really well in T20 internationals and for his IPL franchises and so on. But yeah, average of 40, hasn't been able to strike that much because his economy is decent at 5.6. I also think Chris Morris is a pretty complete cricketer. He's taken some amazing catches for the Proteas before. Not that the other two aren't great fielders, but Morris seems to have the reflexes of a cat.
Well, let's move on to the bowling of the other two. You've got Dwayne Pretorius with a bowling average of 29 and an economy of 4.8. Now, I mean, that's pretty decent.
Very similar to Andile's record. Andile's also got an average of 29. He's a bit more expensive. But what you have to say for Andile is that he enjoys bowling at the death. And it's something he's done really well at in the past. I can't name the games, but at domestic level, I know he's won a few games for the Dolphins in the final overs. And it's something that he says he enjoys. And he does that role for the Proteas, which obviously you tend to get more wickets in the death overs, but you also go for a few. And he seems to do it really well.
Both of them, Andile and Dwayne, might not have that extra yard of pace that Chris Morris has. But it seems like they've maybe sacrificed that for a bit more control. And it seems to be working out well for them. I mean, Andile looking in good form, picking up 4 wickets in the warm-up game. Andile also has now played 43 ODIs. He's not a newbie anymore. And maintaining that record of a bowling average of 29 and economy of 5.6 over that period of time is what impresses me the most. Because even though Dwayne's stats are very similar, he's only played 19 matches. I'm not saying he couldn't maintain it or even become better, but he has not done that yet.
Because of Andile's ability to mix up his pace, bowl quite a few variations, and to be successful in those death overs, I would actually consider picking Andile just as a bowler at the moment. And I think that's the mark of a great all-rounder, is when you can be picked on one of your skills. To mention the greats, Sean Pollock would definitely have been picked as a bowler, even if he was out of form with the bat. Same with Jar Cullis. Obviously, the great Jar Cullis would definitely be picked with the bat, even if he wasn't able to bowl. Obviously, Andile still needs to prove himself, but at this point, because of his ability to bowl at the death, may well be picked just for his bowling ability, despite the fact that he can bat a bit as well. The next discussion is the classic one, youth versus experience, form versus class. We've got an opening spot that beckons for probably either Aiden Markram or Hashim Amla.
I've got to be honest, Chris. Debating whether Hashim Amla should be included in the starting 11 for the Proteas is a bit emotional for me. I grew up with him being an absolute rock in our batting lineup. He's been performing so well for South Africa over so many years. But I mean, unfortunately, every party must come to an end at some stage. It seems like we're almost there, but maybe this World Cup can be his last hurrah.
As we always say, form is temporary and class is permanent. But all great players do come to the end of their careers, unfortunately. Aiden Markram, relatively new kid on the block, inverted commas, seems to have cemented his spot in the test team. He's got a great average there. But in the one-day international scene, he's only played 18 games.
Average of 29, striker of 88. Not quite there. I feel he's a much better player than that.
Yeah, he's got all the makings of a great player. I'm sure he'll go on to be a great South African Proteas player.
Definitely.
The question is right now, who's the right person for this World Cup?
That's not such an easy question.
Yeah. Marco's got the form. He's been playing for Hampshire in English conditions. In his last 3 games, he scored 61, 130 and 88.
And before that, he piled on the runs for the Titans as well. So, I mean, if you look at the past couple of months' form, it's got to be Markram.
Yeah, but then looking at Hashim Amla, he's got an average of 49 opening the batting for the Proteas.
Albeit he didn't open the batting for his whole career.
True, but as stats go, 49 average is respectable for anyone.
Doesn't matter where you bat.
And most of the guys opening the batting are pretty happy with the 40.
Yeah. I mean, he's almost got 8,000 runs. There's a lot of experience there.
Yeah, so unfortunately his last few games have been T20 games. He hasn't really come alive in those games. I think Markram's probably the right call. He's a young guy. He's got all the talent. That's obvious for everyone to see. This experience will be great for him. And if he can maintain the form that he's had, he'll score piles of runs.
I'm going to differ with you. For me, in a World Cup, the mighty Hash is going to do it. I get goosebumps if I think about all the things he's done for South Africa with the bat. Even though his form of late hasn't been great, I feel he's the guy to stabilise our innings and also play the more conservative part to Quinton de Kock's fire, which he has and has been illustrating lately, especially in the IPL. So I think he's the guy.
Yeah, now for the rest of the Proteas team, I think we've got a really well-balanced side. We've got our captain Fantastic coming in probably at 3, and then Rassie van der Dussen at 4.
Rassie van der Business, bro.
The rising star.
All jokes aside, I really back him to make a big impact at this year's World Cup. He's been a really good example of someone paying their dues at domestic level cricket, maturing as a cricketer, getting selected at the international team and grabbing that opportunity and making a mark. I mean, he's only played 9 ODIs, but he's got an average of 88 and he's done really well. And I think he's a multi-dimensional batsman. He can come in and stabilize the ship, but he can also accelerate and finish an innings off, as he proved with all of his T20 success, where he's been playing all over the world in T20 leagues. He's recently been retained by his Caribbean Premier League team. So I think he's going to do the business for us.
And then we've got JP Duminy and David Miller, probably at 5 and 6. Unclear which order they'll be in. There's obviously a chance that one of them drops out if both Markram and Amla are in form. But for now, I think they're probably our middle lower order. They've actually had some great success together in the past. In the previous edition of the World Cup, they put on a huge partnership together against Zimbabwe.
Both of them getting hundreds, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, David Miller was man of the match. So we know they can do well together. Their styles sort of complement each other. JP Duminy taking the quick singles and David Miller with the power hitting.
Both of them gun fielders.
Yeah, so great assets to the team. And then our bowling attack, which may well be the best in the world. We've got KG and Lungi, the 2 young guns, and then Dale Steyn with both the experience and his chainsaw celebration.
And then, of course, to round out our bowling attack, we've got Imran Tahir. He just seems to be getting better with age. His recent display in the IPL was just once again an indication that he's still at the top of his game. His fielding has improved a lot. I'm really excited to see what he's going to do in this World Cup, and I think he's also going to play a vital role.
And then not to forget Tabrei Shamsi, our second spinner. If conditions are helpful to the spinners, he's a real mystery, got a lot of variations, so a great option if we can play 2 spinners. Otherwise, obviously, if Imran gets injured, he'll be a great replacement for him.
He's also done quite well on the domestic stage, and I think he is a good option to pick up wickets for us, and if the pitches dry out, he's going to be a handful. So let's get into England, the opposition for the first game.
Yeah, tournament favourites, and rightfully so.
Absolute batting powerhouse looking at that lineup.
Yeah, they bat so deep. Most of their bowlers can at least hold the bat, if not are genuinely all-rounders.
You consider it all-rounders, yeah.
So they bat deep, and their top 6 or 7 have all got amazing strike rates and seem to come off more than they fail.
Yeah, starting off at the top of the order with Jason Roy.
Yeah, born in Durban.
Safa boy. Although, I mean, he left South Africa at something like, I think, the age of 10, so we can't claim him, but yeah.
We'll always claim him.
I mean, so Roy and Bairstow, devastating at the top of the order. Bairstow illustrating so in his partnership with David Warner at the top of the order for Sunrisers Hyderabad in the recent IPL. You could clearly see the difference when he departed from the Sunrisers and how their campaign sort of went downhill from there.
Yeah, and Jason Roy has got an almost Brendan McCullum-esque approach to the game. He sort of doesn't waste any time, gets going, gets the ball out the park, or gets himself off the park.
Death or glory, boo.
And it seems to come off more than he fails. In his recent form, he's scored a whole heap of runs, and he's a player that can take the game away from an opposition.
Then at number 3, they've got the solid Joe Root.
Yeah.
Captain Morgan at 4. And then, arguably, their best batsman at this moment, Jos Buttler. Since the last World Cup, he's been going at an average of 50 and a strike rate of 124. I mean, that is unbelievable. Those stats are comparable to the ODI greats if we're looking at AB de Villiers, Virat Kohli, etc., etc.
Yeah, and then the mercurial all-rounder Ben Stokes in at 6, and Moeen Ali, who might make the team as a batsman at 7.
Moeen Ali, he keeps on being a surprise package for me. Every time I think England should be moving on from Moeen Ali, he puts in some classy performances. Then we've got Adil Rashid. Didn't bowl in the warm-ups due to a bit of a shoulder injury apparently, but I mean, he's a high-class leg spinner. And then the mercurial or slightly controversial Jofra Archer.
The young gun replacing David Willey in the team. Unfortunate for David Willey to miss out. But as we mentioned before, Jofra Archer definitely got an X factor about him.
Got a nice extra yard of pace. And he's been doing really well in the IPL, his county team, and for the Hobart Hurricanes in the Big Bash League. He's basically knocked the door down, telling them, listen, here I am, pick me. Now, I know there's been some discussion surrounding his eligibility. Jofra Archer playing for the West Indies under-19 team, and then after that being based in England, only recently becoming eligible to be picked for England. So there are some people who argue he shouldn't be picked because he hasn't been part of the team which has been built over the past couple of years. But I mean, if you've got a guy like that type of X-factor, talent and extra yard of pace, you've got to pick him, even though he hasn't played that much cricket for England.
Then rounding out the bowlers, although most of them can hold a bat, you've got Mark Wood, Tom Curran, Chris Wokes and Liam Plunkett. Wokes especially has been in great form.
Yeah, he's most likely going to open the bowling for England.
And can definitely wield the willow. He's very useful in the lower order and always seems to make extra runs if England need him.
Then Tom Curran, another Safa, went to Hilton College.
Yeah.
But also a quality one-day bowler. He's got a good slow ball. I think the last spot for the fast bowlers in the English team is going to be quite a hotly contested spot. Liam Plunkett also showing his experience in the recent warm-up games, picking up some wickets and also doing quite well with the bat. Then the last two members of the squad, which we haven't mentioned yet, are Liam Dawson, who replaced Joe Denley, who was in the provisional squad, and then James Vince, who replaced Alex Hales. Hales being removed from the squad due to some off-field shenanigans. But needless to say, James Vince, a quality batsman. But let's be honest, looking at England's current batting lineup, if there aren't any injuries, he's most likely not going to get a bat. So all in all, I'm pretty excited for that SA versus England clash.
Yeah, it's going to be a great opener. I think it's time for final predictions.
I'm going to go for the Proteas, sticking with my patriotism. I think our bowling lineup is going to do it for us.
It's going to be a lot of pressure for England, opening the World Cup in front of their home crowd with a lot of expectations.
The nerves are going to be buzzing.
I'm very excited for us to bowl first and to see our gun bowlers charge in and tear through that England
Just a bit of a Dale Steyn outswinger, bro.
Yeah, so I think I'm also backing the Proteas to do it, and I hope the boys can execute.
Okay, so that concludes our episode for this week. Thank you for joining us on the couch. If you enjoyed it, hit that subscribe button on your favorite platform. Smash that like button. Tell all your friends.
Yeah, tell your kids, tell your wife, tell your husbands too. And we'll see you back on the couch next week. Cheers for now.